Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we really try to dig into those complex topics, trying to pull out the essential insights for you. And today, we're tackling something that feels really fundamental, but maybe surprisingly overlooked in the world we build around us. Just think about it for a second. How often do we see, the grand opening of some amazing new building, a skyscraper, maybe a bridge, a new hospital? There's always the ribbon cutting, right? The celebrations, the headlines. And then almost straight away, it feels like everyone just moves on. We celebrate finishing it, sure, but do we ever really, truly, systematically check if that structure actually works the way it was supposed to? Does it run efficiently? And maybe more importantly, does it really serve the people it was built for in the ways they actually need it to? It feels like this, pervasive problem, almost an unspoken issue right at the heart of the construction industry. It's kind of a notorious blind spot, isn't it? This failure to really learn from past projects. And it leaves us with this one big central question for our deep dive today. Did we actually get it right?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's not just a crucial question. It's fundamental to what we're digging into today. And what's really striking, I think, is that this isn't just, an occasional slip up. This gap, this disconnect between the design, the build, and how it actually performs. It's often a really deep-seated, systemic thing within the industry. We pour, huge resources into planning, right? Super detailed blueprints, careful construction. But then far too often, that really vital feedback loop, the one that should kick in after the project's done and people are actually using it, it's just missing. And that's exactly where post-occupancy evaluation, or POE, comes in. It becomes not just important, but genuinely essential. It's critical practice, definitely, but one that, in its proper systematic form is still pretty rare. At its core, POE is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a methodical, structured way of studying a building after it's been occupied, after it's lived in, to see how it's actually performing for the people using it. It's basically the missing piece that connects the original design idea with the messy, real-world way things actually work out.
Exactly. And our mission for you today, listening in, is really to give you a shortcut to understanding why POE isn't just, a nice idea. It's absolutely vital. It should be a non-negotiable step if we want our built environment to get better. We're going to peel back the layers, look at how it's done properly. We'll talk about the surprising things it often reveals about our building, sometimes even shocking things, and also the stubborn kind of complex barriers that are stopping it from just being standard practice everywhere. Because, look, this isn't just about tweaking a ventilation system, is it? Or rerouting a path somewhere. It's about a really fundamental shift in how we approach creating things, how we innovate, and crucially, how we build learning right into the process. It's about building smarter, not just more.
Okay, let's unpack this core issue then. Why is it so incredibly hard for an industry that, let's face it, prides itself on precision, planning, amazing engineering feats? Why is it so hard to actually learn from past projects? It really does feel like this pervasive build it and forget it attitude is just everywhere.
It's like launching new software, but never looking at bug reports. Or designing a car, but never testing it on real roads with real drivers. It seems crazy when you put it like that. In construction, it feels like once that ribbon's cut, the last nail's in, keys handed over, everyone just breathes out, closes the books, and boom, on to the next thing. That project closeout phase, it's treated like the finish line, isn't it? The absolute end. Not a point to pause and learn. Why is that habit so ingrained?
That's precisely the blind spot we need to dissect. If you look at the standard way projects are managed, the project control cycle, they call it, it's got all these crucial steps, right? You develop plans, you set benchmarks, you monitor how things are going, spot deviations, figure out how to correct them, make adjustments, all very proactive, all during the project. But then the final step, the one that should really close that learning loop, which is basically document, report, and evaluate the results. That step gets neglected with, frankly, alarming regularity. The project management body of knowledge, the PMBOK guide, which is kind of the global standard for how to run projects, well, it points out that this is exactly where your lessons learned and your best practices for the next job should be captured, should be baked into the system. But, more often than not, the teams are just anxious to move on to the next project, new deadlines, new pressures, the whole business momentum. And this creates what you could only call a lack of discipline. It means we consistently, systemically miss these golden opportunities to learn. The cycle just stops short. All that potential knowledge just left behind.
It makes me think of that powerful story, that historical example you mentioned from the source material about Isambard Kingdom Brunel, the great engineer, right? He had that massive failure, didn't he? The atmospheric railway. Huge ambition, huge cost.
A colossal failure, yeah. Publicly and financially ruinous at the time.
Right. But what did he do? He didn't try to patch it up or spin it or pretend it was nearly there. He made that incredibly tough call to just wipe the slate clean, admit it failed, take the whole thing apart, and crucially learn everything he possibly could from it.
Exactly. A huge amount of courage, really.
That level of honesty, that humility, that commitment to really digging into failure to find the lessons, that feels like exactly what the industry needs more of today. It often starts with just being willing to say, okay, that bit didn't work as planned. Why not? What can we learn? Instead of just quietly burying the mistakes.
That's a perfect parallel. And it really highlights this ongoing tension between what was intended in the design and what actually happens on the ground. If you look back, architecturally speaking, someone like Le Corbusier, the modernist pioneer, he famously said something like, "Architecture is stifled by custom. The styles are a lie." He was pushing for functional design driven by strict needs, making buildings work for their purpose, not just look a certain way.
Makes sense? Form follows function.
Right. But sometimes the modernist movement may be influenced by that German idea of Gestalt totality. It led architects to want to determine every detail of the building, which then meant, in some interpretations, you cannot touch anything once it's there, like a perfect finished object.
Ah, I see. So the pursuit of that perfect, complete vision actually blocks learning later on.
It can, yeah. This mindset, while maybe aiming for a kind of holistic perfection, can inadvertently create a massive barrier to learning because it focuses so intensely on just two moments. The moment of go-ahead design approved and the moment of handover, building finished. It tends to completely overlook the ongoing life, the performance, the necessary tweaks and evolution a building goes through. It kind of freezes it in time.
It's almost like they wanted to build a perfect statue, something unchanging, rather than a space for messy, evolving human life. And that connects right back to the people on the ground, doesn't it? The reality. Like that builder, Jim, you mentioned from the sources. For him, the pursuit of quality seems to lie near the center of what makes Jim happiest.
He really cares, right?
Deeply cares about the craft, yeah.
Yet even someone like him, dedicated as he is, runs into situations where the specs represent a mistake. And that's not anyone's fault, is it? Or just, it's incredibly hard, maybe impossible, to predict absolutely everything up front. Exactly. Every way a space might be used, how materials behave over decades, how different people interact with it.
It just highlights that gap, that sometimes huge gap, between the drawing board and the lived reality. You can have the best design, the best builder, and still, things might not quite land right once people move in.
And what's really fascinating, if we step back even further, is that this urge to understand how our creations actually affect us, how they perform in the real world, it's not new. We can look back thousands of years to Vitruvius, the Roman architect. He described what was basically, an intuitive kind of POE for water quality. He said roughly, if the springs run free and open, go look at the people living nearby. If they look strong, healthy complexions, sound legs, clear eyes, then the springs are good.
Wow. So literally judging the source by the health of the users?
Exactly. It wasn't sensors and surveys, obviously, but it shows this ancient, deep-seated human desire to understand the real impact of our environment. How does it actually affect us? It tells us we've always known, on some level, that the real proof of good design isn't just in the making, it's in the living with it.
So pulling this together, what does it all mean? It means the industry, fundamentally, is missing this absolutely crucial feedback mechanism, this learning loop. And it's not necessarily because people don't care or aren't smart enough. As we've seen, it's often these ingrained habits, these cultural mindsets, favoring perfection over adaptation.
And contractual hurdles, legal fears.
And just that relentless pressure to finish up and get on to the next job. So we're building amazing things at an incredible pace, but we're not always, maybe not even often, learning from them systematically. And that just feels like a huge missed opportunity.
Okay, so if we agree we need this learning, what is this formal process, this post-occupancy evaluation, really? You've made it clear it's more than just a final snagging list or a quick walkthrough. It sounds like a proper, dedicated investigation. It really is. And let's maybe just nail down that definition again, because the specifics matter. POE is the systematic process of studying a building after it has been occupied to see how it is actually performing for its users. The key words there are systematic, so it's structured, objective, repeatable, and occupied. It's not about checking things while the paint's still drying or the day it's handed over all shiny and new.
Right, it needs time to settle in, to be lived in.
Exactly. You let people inhabit the space, let the building breathe, let it be used as intended or perhaps not as intended for a decent period. Then you gather the comprehensive data, and that's what really separates it from your standard project closeout. Closeout is important, sure, but it's mostly about ticking contractual boxes, final payments, warranties.
Making sure the legal bits are done.
Right. It's about meeting obligations. POE is about assessing long-term success, functional reality, and, crucially, how happy the users actually are.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. We often think the client is the judge. But who are these users that POE focuses on? Is it the CEO who signed the checks? Or the person cleaning the floors at 3 a.m.? Or the patient in the hospital bed? Their experiences must be wildly different. It can't just be the owner or the initial client, can it? Because they might never even really use the building day to day.
You're absolutely right to zoom in on that. The idea of users in POE is deliberately broad, and that inclusiveness is key to making it work. That PMBOK guide definition of stakeholders is really useful here. It says they permeate all aspects of the project, they define requirements, they shape planning, they determine quality criteria, and crucially, throughout the project or at its closure, they use the project deliverables and influence the realization of project outcomes.
So pretty much anyone affected by or interacting with the building.
Pretty much. It means the direct occupants, definitely patients, doctors, nurses in a hospital, residents in apartments, office workers, students, even the public using parks or plazas. But it also includes people like the facilities managers, the maintenance crews, maybe even local community groups or nearby businesses affected by the building. Their viewpoints are all different, sometimes they'll even conflict, but they're all valid pieces of the puzzle for understanding how that building truly performs. It's a huge contrast to, say, someone like Robert Moses, the New York planner. His big projects often completely ignored feedback from the actual public, the user.
Right, very top down.
Very. And the source material suggests this often meant his projects kind of undermine their own aims because the real user needs and experiences just weren't factored in, leading to places that just didn't work well for people.
So it's really about shifting our whole perspective, moving away from just delivering a thing, a static object, to ensuring that thing actually delivers for people in all their messy, diverse, changing needs. It's about impact, not just output. Measuring success by how well it works in daily life.
Okay, so if we're going to commit to that deeper understanding, how do you actually do a POE? What are the tools, the techniques? How do you capture that real-world feedback effectively? It sounds like it needs a mix of approaches.
It absolutely does. You need to blend both the qualitative, the human experience side, and the quantitative, the hard data, to get a proper rounded picture. So on the qualitative side, a lot involves direct engagement. Things like surveys and interviews. This is where you talk directly to the users, the stakeholders, like the PMBOK guide says. It's about eliciting requirements, managing expectations, solving problems. You ask them about their comfort. Is it too hot, too cold, too noisy? About functionality. Can you find your way around easily? Can you do your job effectively? And just overall satisfaction.
So direct questions about their experience.
Exactly. Things you just can't measure with a sensor. You might ask, how easy is it to get to the X-ray department? Or, do you feel you get enough natural light here? Crucial subjective stuff. Then there's observation. This is where you don't just ask what people say, you actually watch how they use the space.
Ah, like behavior mapping.
Precisely. You might see people consistently avoiding one corner of a room, even if they say they like it. Why? Maybe it's poor lighting, maybe a draft, maybe it feels exposed. Observation picks up those nuances. You watch traffic flow, how people navigate, which seats get used, which doors get propped open. It connects to that sensible cities idea, focusing on optimization inflected with humanization, how systems and people interact, not just top-down tech dictating things, keeping the human firmly in the frame. Then you layer on the quantitative methods, the empirical data. Energy bills and sensor data are big ones. You look at the actual bills versus what was predicted. You can deploy sensors. The BIM handbook mentions measuring environmental quality, lighting, and other properties. This gives you hard numbers on energy use, actual temperatures, humidity levels, CO2 levels, ventilation effectiveness. Did those fancy systems actually control indoor humidity and airborne pollutants like they were supposed to?
Getting beyond the promises to the actual numbers.
Exactly. And this is where things like cyber-physical systems come in, smart networks that don't just sense, but analyze and can even respond. It's like giving the building a nervous system, providing constant data. You also track water usage. Simple, but effective. How does actual consumption compare to the design targets? And maintenance logs.
Yeah.
Seriously, these are often overlooked gold mines.
Really? Why?
Because if the same type of window seal keeps failing, or the same air conditioning unit needs constant repair, that points directly to a potential design flaw or a poor material choice. It's like that historical example of Henry Holland's stone at South Hill weathering badly, something you only see over time, documented through observation and maintenance records. And weaving through all of this now is modern technology, especially building information modeling, or BIM.
Right, the 3D digital models.
Yeah, but they're much more than just 3D drawings. BIM is described as being capable of supporting qualitative and quantitative analyses, structural, energy use, daylight simulation, all sorts. So you can use BIM to set the baseline. During design, what should it do? And then, crucially, you can integrate the real-world performance data you gathered during the POE back into that model. What is it doing? You see organizations like the U.S. General Services Administration already pushing for BIM tools that can automatically derive and update space volumes, demanding measurable performance from the get-go. This sets up the potential for this seamless loop, the digital twin constantly checking against the physical reality.
Wow. Okay, so it really is this powerful blend, isn't it? The subjective human experience, how it feels to be there, combined with the objective, hard data, what's actually happening physically and environmentally. It's about moving way beyond the blueprint to the lived reality, the ultimate reality check for our buildings.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? What do these POEs actually find? What kinds of gaps do they typically uncover between that glossy brochure vision and the day-to-day reality for people? What happens when those two worlds don't quite match up?
Oh, they uncover some incredibly revealing things, often quite surprising gaps between the expectation and the reality. Take thermal comfort. You might have a design with super sophisticated modeling predicting perfect temperatures year-round.
State-of-the-art HVAC.
Exactly. Yet the POE comes back reporting widespread, uncomfortable thermal conditions. People are freezing in winter, roasting in summer, and this often points to underlying issues, maybe excessive energy loss or moisture condensation, especially with things like modern steel framing if the thermal breaks. Crucial little details that stop heat transfer weren't done right.
So the theory was perfect, but the execution or detailing wasn't quite there.
Or maybe even the theory didn't fully account for how people actually perceive temperature, which is very subjective. Studies show even certified green buildings often have significant numbers of occupants reporting discomfort. It's a classic gap. Then there's wayfinding and usability. The building code might say you need X number of exits for Y number of people based on occupant load calculations.
Sounds logical, right?
Purely mathematical. Right. But a POE might find that in reality, people find the exit routes confusing, signage is poor, or they don't understand rules like once occupants leave the exit, they may not re-enter, which could be dangerous in an emergency. You even see this historically. Palladio, the great Renaissance architect, he apparently designed internal stairs in one villa that the owners just rarely used.
Huh. So he learned.
He adapted. In later designs, he prioritized external stairs for easier access to the main floor, realizing his initial assumption about how they'd use the space was wrong. He observed, he adapted. That's POE thinking, in a way. We also see big gaps in environmental performance sometimes. Think about that Pearl River Tower in China. Super ambitious goal, net zero energy.
Wow, that's a high bar.
Huge bar. It got a top LA Platinum rating, aimed for 40% less energy than standard benchmarks. But did it actually hit true net zero in operation? A POE could measure that precisely and find, oh, maybe not quite. Maybe it's incredibly efficient, fantastic even, but still falls short of that lofty goal.
So a gap between the label or the target and the actual measured performance.
Exactly. POE would pinpoint why. Which systems underperformed? Which assumptions were optimistic? Invaluable data for the next project. Material performance over time is another big one. POE catches things you wouldn't see a handover, like certain stones or claddings that just weather badly, like at South Hill, leading to unexpected maintenance costs and looking shabby much sooner than expected. Or with wood, maybe shrinkage causes cupping or diamonding in floors because it wasn't specified or installed correctly for the environment, creating problems years later. And maybe most importantly, POE gets right into user satisfaction and social impact. Think about urban planning. POE principles could assess if a new development is truly capable of holding populations through choice. Do people want to live there? Is it perceived as safe and otherwise workable for city life? Does it actually create those lively, well-watched, continuously used public spaces that urbanists like Jane Jacobs talked about? Does it make supervising kids easier and more natural?
So measuring the social success of the livability.
Exactly. These are concrete human measures of success that go way beyond just, is the structure sound or does it look good? It's about how well it supports human life.
It really does sound like the building is this living thing, and POE is its essential health checkup. Understanding its real condition, its habits, where it's thriving, where it's struggling, often in ways the original team never imagined. Which brings up that crucial question again, doesn't it? If these insights are so incredibly powerful, revealing such fundamental things, offering clear ways to improve, why on earth isn't POE just standard practice? It feels almost irresponsible not to do it.
Yeah, you think with all those benefits, POE would just be automatic, part of the standard process for every single project, baked right in. But it's not. It's still rare, as you said. So what are the big obstacles? What's stopping it from becoming the norm? It sounds like a tangled mess of reasons. It really is a tangled mess. It spans culture, contracts, money, all deeply woven into how the industry works. First off, and maybe the deepest issue, is cultural resistance and mindset. We mentioned earlier how the industry often feels dominated by two instants in time, getting the green light and handing over the keys.
Right, the start and the finish.
That focus distorts everything, as one source put it. It creates this massive barrier to learning because the long-term view just isn't the priority. And there's that legacy of the Gestalt design idea too, wanting total control, designing every detail so you cannot touch anything once it's there. That perfectionist mindset inherently resists feedback or the idea that things might need changing later. Then you add the simple human factor, the anxiety to move on. Project teams work under intense pressure, deadlines, budgets. As one source said bluntly, everyone is usually anxious to move on to the next project. Getting everyone back together for even a few hours at the end is tough, let alone for a proper POE study that might take months.
I could see that.
Yeah.
They're exhausted. They want the next challenge, the next contract.
Exactly. Revisiting the old job, potentially digging up problems, is just not appealing. Plus, while our listeners might appreciate not being overwhelmed by info, there's also a general resistance among busy professionals to adding another layer of data collection, analysis, self-critique. It just feels like more work, not necessarily more insight to some. Next up, you hit really significant contractual and legal complexities. A huge one is liability, fear of getting sued.
If the POE finds flaws.
Exactly. What is punished by claims is any kind of adaptivity after the fact, or even during construction sometimes. So formally documenting potential flaws in a POE report, that feels risky. Architects, engineers, contractors, nobody wants to create ammo that could be used against them in the complex world of construction law and claims management. It's a real deterrent. And there's often a responsibility gap. Once the project is handed over and the warranty's up, whose job is it to check performance? Often, nobody's. The original team has no contractual obligation. The responsibility kind of falls between the cracks, leaving the client holding the bag if issues emerge later. And finally, the evergreen challenges, budget and time constraints. Often the first excuse you hear. POE is frequently seen as an extra, something unbudgeted tacked on after the main project funds are spent, possibly already over budget.
So it's seen as an optional add-on, not essential.
Precisely. Which means there's rarely dedicated funding or resources allocated up front. No budget, no staff time, no POE. It's hard to justify when project closeout itself is already seen as one of the most difficult processes to manage. The idea of extending that engagement further often meets a wall of resistance. The immediate cost of POE is visible, tangible. The long-term savings or benefits, less so. Makes it a hard sell, especially in competitive bidding.
Wow. It really is a perfect storm, isn't it? Ingrained habits, culture, legal fears, cost perceptions, all pushing against POE, keeping it on the sidelines despite its obvious potential. But what if we flip that? What if we stop focusing on the barriers and really hammer home the immense tangible value POE brings, not just for users, but for everyone involved, designers, builders, owners? Right, this is where we need to make that compelling business case. Show the POE isn't just some academic ideal or a feel-good exercise. It's a direct route to better outcomes. Financially better, functionally better, for everyone. It's about moving from just building to building smarter.
Absolutely. And the benefits are concrete and they ripple outwards. First, POE drives tangible, improved performance and efficiency. By looking at real data energy bills, water use, sensor readings, designers get priceless feedback to optimize future buildings. Lower running costs right there. Guides on building for specific climates, talking about insulation, ventilation. POE is how you verify if those strategies actually worked in the real world.
So it closes the loop, feeding real data back into the next design.
Exactly. It informs better specs, better material choices next time. You stop making the same energy-wasting mistakes. It forces a focus on the building's whole life cycle, not just day one, delivering sustained value over decades. It fuels that continuous improvement cycle, capturing lessons learned, creating genuine best practices. You stop repeating errors, you build knowledge. And it encourages more adaptive design, thinking about how buildings might need to change over time, like those historical buildings that evolved gracefully. Second, and this is huge, POE leads directly to higher client and user satisfaction, which means real value. It checks if the building actually meets the needs stated in the original plan, the program. Does the hospital really work well for patients and staff? POE finds out.
Better outcomes, happier people.
Definitely. Better healing environments, maybe higher staff retention, more effective workplaces. It addresses that human factor head-on through surveys, interviews, getting beyond just the technical stuff. It helps create places people choose to be in, places that feel safe, workable, lively, good for morale, good for communities. And for the client, it means reduced risk and costs down the line. Catching a design flaw early via POE saves potentially massive repair bills years later. It cuts down on those unexpected contingency costs, errors, and changes that blow budgets. And finally, doing POE consistently builds a more skilled and adaptable design and build team. It turns past projects into storehouses of knowledge, as Sullivan said about books, Tools of the Mind. Teams learn directly from their own work. It fosters integrity and accountability. You're judged on actual performance, not just the initial design. That pushes everyone to up their game. Ultimately, learning systematically from what works and what doesn't helps the whole industry move beyond being stifled by custom. It encourages that agile, resilient, ongoing adaptation that's so vital today, with everything changing so fast.
That's such a key point. It's not just about fixing the last job. It's about proactively shaping a much better future for all buildings. Building smarter, not just more or faster. Every completed project becomes a lab, a test bed for the next one. It's like investing in the collective IQ of the entire industry.
And connecting that to the bigger picture, the pace of change now is just relentless, isn't it? Technology, climate, societal needs, organizations, including construction, they will not have a window of 3 decades to make the change, like maybe past eras did. Adaptation has to be faster now, and POE is a critical tool for accelerating that learning curve. Plus, with the rise of sensible cities, all these embedded sensors, digital tools, those cyber-physical systems, gathering performance data is becoming easier, more powerful.
So the tech is actually making POE more feasible now than ever before.
Exactly. It's moving from maybe a niche academic thing to a practical, scalable necessity. The tools are catching up with the need.
So wrapping this up, our deep dive really shows that post-occupancy evaluation is that indispensable missing link, isn't it, in the whole construction learning cycle. It's about having the humility collectively to ask, did we actually get it right? And then having the discipline to use the answer good, bad, or surprising to build better next time. More efficient and definitely more human-centric spaces. It's about real accountability to the end user.
It really highlights that fundamental difference, doesn't it, between just delivering a project, ticking the boxes, and truly learning from it to ensure long-term success. Like the PMBOK guide implies, engaging stakeholders isn't just about the build phase, it's understanding how they use the project deliverables and influence the realization of project outcomes over the building's whole life. POE gives you that essential lens. It bridges theory and lived reality.
We've kind of journeyed from ancient builders trying to design for purpose intuitively.
Right, like Vitruvius and the water quality.
Through big architectural movements that maybe sometimes lost sight of user needs.
The Gestalt idea potentially leading to rigidity.
And now, seeing how modern tech offers these incredible new tools for feedback. So this isn't just about pipes and wires or concrete and steel anymore. It's about a much more holistic, human-centered way of creating the places where we actually live and work and hopefully thrive, designing for life itself. So here's a final thought for you to take away. Consider the buildings you use every single day, your home, your workplace, the local library, the supermarket. If they were designed with this idea of continuous learning built in, if every door, every window, every shared space, every system was regularly checked for how it actually serves you, for its real performance, its human impact, what surprising truths do you think we'd uncover about these familiar places? What could our towns and cities become if we really truly committed to learning from every single thing we build? Quite a powerful thought, isn't it?